Parliament, on this very interesting episode. He's on the 15th of July, there's a no confidence motion, and he's being attacked by the BJP. He's being attacked by Lal Krishna Advani. He's being attacked by Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He's being attacked by Murli Manohar Joshi. He just listens to all these attacks, and he gets up and he says, "आप लोग कह रहे हैं कि मैंने हिंदुस्तान को बेच दिया है. मैंने क्या किया? हमारे उपनिषद में कहा गया है, सर्वनाशे समुत्पन्ने अर्धम त्यजति पंडितः." Everybody looking at him, started quoting the Upanishads. Sarvanashe samutpanne ardham tyajati panditah. Means what? Sarvanashe samutpanne. When you lose everything, when destruction is imminent, ardham tyajati panditah. The wise man gives up half so that he can protect the other half. Then he said, मैंने तो यही किया है. Sarvanashe samutpanne ardham tyajati panditah. The BJP kept quiet, and here was a Sanskrit Upanishadic sort of quoting Prime Minister. And then he goes on to say that all of you, he's telling the left parties. Now he takes on the left parties. And he tells the left parties, you are saying that I am bowing to American pressure, that this is all Western plot, and I am party to this Western plot and loss of India's sovereignty. What have I done? I have only done a Mahaprasthana. Again he uses a Sanskrit phrase. Now Mahaprasthana is one of the chapters in the Mahabharata. It's when Yudhishthira goes up to heaven, followed by a dog and by his, by Draupadi and his other brothers. So Mahaprasthana, he uses the word Mahaprasthana. The point I'm making is, you see, the idiom of communication that Mr. Narasimha Rao had to defang the BJP and to defang his critics was not some technocratic economic gobbledygook, but it was Upanishadic wisdom. Ardham tyajati sarvanashe samutpanne ardham tyajati panditaha. Mahaprasthane. These are how you communicate. Narasimha Rao did want I.G. Patel as it was his first choice as finance minister. I.G. Patel refused on health considerations, but there were many people batting for Dr. Manmohan Singh. Manishankar Iyer sent me a long email, which I reproduced in the book, which suggests that Rajiv Gandhi had shortlisted Dr. Manmohan Singh as finance minister. R. Venkatraman, who was the president of India at that time, was backing for Dr. Manmohan Singh. But most importantly, the man who was Mr. Narasimha Rao's conscience keeper, the man who was seeing Narasimha Rao 14 hours a day after he became Prime Minister for the first week, Dr. P.C. Alexander, he was the man who really pushed Dr. Manmohan Singh as finance minister. And I think Dr. Manmohan Singh himself got to know that he would be finance minister on the evening of the 20th June. And I was actually present when the phone was connected. Mr. Narasimha Rao spoke to Dr. Manmohan Singh at about 8:15 in the morning on the 21st and asked him to come for the swearing-in ceremony on the 21st. The portfolios were announced on the 22nd, but Dr. Manmohan Singh was told that he was going to be finance minister at about 2 o'clock on the 21st. He was the only one who knew what his portfolio was. It was a masterstroke, no doubt about it. And had anyone else been the finance minister, I don't think that these reforms would have seen the shape that they took. It would not have been as deep as they were, and it would not have been accepted across the board as they were. And I think a lot of it had to do with the personality of Dr. Manmohan Singh, and of course backed by the political management of Mr. Narasimha Rao. So it really was a historic change, and it was a historic change brought about by the two most unlikely individuals. And I've in my book, which I wrote last year, To the Brink and Back, India's 91 story, I call this the hedgehog and the fox combination. The hedgehog knows only one thing. The fox knows many things. So Narasimha Rao was the fox. He knew many things. He was smart, he was manipulative, he was crafty, he was canny. And Dr. Manmohan Singh was the hedgehog, He knew one thing, which was economic reforms. So it's this fox-hedgehog combination which I think rescued India. Mr. Narasimha Rao was the master of indecision. In fact, Manishankar Iyer once said famously that Narasimha Rao is the only man who is indecisive in 9 different languages, So, Mr. Narasimha Rao is the man who said not taking a decision is also taking a decision. His chief ministerial record was lackluster. His record as a union minister. He was defense minister, HRD minister, home minister, health minister, deputy chairman planning commission. Very, very lackluster. But he rises to the occasion as prime minister. Dr. Manmohan Singh was cautious. He was cautious. He was not a spectacular, record. He was cautious. He was cautious as deputy chairman planning commission. He was cautious as the Reserve Bank. He was pragmatic. He was not an ideologue. But he becomes a magnificent finance minister. So this moment of June 1991 produces heroes out of 2 individuals whose life till then had been one of general, in the case of Narasimha Rao it had been completely lackluster. In the case of Dr. Manmohan Singh it had been, sort of low-key, steady, not spectacular but low-key and steady. But in 91 both of them rise to the occasion. It's an ambivalent relationship, and I've alluded to that in my book. It's an ambivalent relationship, and it's ambivalent for a variety of reasons. Narasimha Rao is a much misunderstood man, but he did many things to make himself misunderstood. What happened on the 6th of December 1992 in Ayodhya created a feeling in the party that Mr. Narasimha Rao did not do all that he could as Prime Minister of India to save the Babri Masjid from demolition. In fact, there are many of my friends and colleagues in the Congress party who still believe that Narasimha Rao winked at the demolition. That he allowed the demolition to take place. Then we had the Jain Hawala scandal where he tried to embroil some of his own colleagues, Malram Jhakar, Bhamad Rao Scindia, Kamal Nath, all these guys, his own colleagues he tried to embroil in the Hawala scandal. So Mr. Narasimha Rao, and then he had this ubiquitous Rasputin type figure of Chandraswamy, trying to troubleshoot on his behalf. And there is a book that has come out by Javed Chaudhary, who was the enforcement director at that time, and he describes how Chandraswamy tried to plant evidence in order to implicate Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, in the Bofors scandal. And that was directly, Chandraswamy wouldn't do anything without Narasimha Rao's concurrence. So Narasimha Rao was a very complex individual, very complex, highly scholarly, very erudite, fluent in 9-10 languages, both Indian and foreign. A prime minister that India has not seen. I mean, enormously erudite, enormously learned. Well, industry, there's a chapter in my book on FICCI, ASSOCHAM and CII. On the 31st of August, they met the Prime Minister, and I happened to be present and taking notes. Industry welcomed the reforms, but they were deeply suspicious about. They were suspicious about reducing import duties. They were not gung ho about foreign investment. In fact, later on, if you remember, the Bombay Club was formed 2 years later. And industry said internal liberalization, yes, but external liberalization later. So you do your internal liberalization first, and then we'll worry about external liberalization later. Whereas these economic reforms was doing both internal liberalization and external liberalization together. So industry, I would say, was cautious. They welcomed it. They were cautious. I think the most important lesson that I take away from 91 The obvious lesson, of course, is that if there is a crisis, the mind gets concentrated, okay? The crisis creates a compulsion, the compulsion creates a conviction, and then you end up doing things. So that's one lesson. But the more important lesson which I learned from 91, looking at Narasimha Rao, looking at Dr. Manmohan Singh, political management is absolutely essential. What do I mean by political management? Political communication, political networking, political compromise, political outreach, political give and take, letting the other guy take the credit once in a while. You know, this is all politics. So the political management, how do you manage the politics? Very crucial. And that's where Narasimha Rao got 10 on 10.